I was taking a picture of our neon sign, and there was a burly guy next to me. He's like, "You like Falls City?" I went, "Yeah, absolutely, I do. The other one, you like it?" He's like, and the guy pulled up his arm, and he had Falls City tattooed on his shoulder blade. Wow. And so, you go to business school and you hear about brand equity and nostalgia, and there's only a few brands that people are willing to get a tattoo of, but this guy had the Falls City field tattooed on his arm. It cracked me up. I loved it. Back in the 1950s, I mean, it was one of the top 5 leading beers across the nation. And so Falls City pivoted to a Billy beer, kind of like a lighter beer. Unfortunately, it was a big flop and gave us the nickname, instead of Falls City, Falls Shitty. So that unfortunately became a lasting impression. So it was reinvigorated in 2010, but with the appropriate t-shirt and apparel, same name, less shitty. We are focusing on continuing to increase shelf space and just remaining a staple in the community. This is Louisville Bats. We call this one Home Run Hops. Just introduced to the first year, and it's outselling Blue Moon and Modelo at the ballpark, which is mind-blowing.
Why is that? What do you think that Falls City has done differently from other brands that creates such a emotional connection to it?
Well,
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm excited to welcome you to another episode of the Beverage Biz Podcast. We have a very special guest today, Jason Wade. Jason is with Ness Ventures and Falls City Beer. Ness is a venture capital firm that has acquired several craft beverage brands. And so we're going to dive into a lot of Jason's experience with Ness Ventures and what his team looks for when acquiring craft beverage brands. And we're also going to dive into his experience as president of Falls City Beer and his take on the brewery industry, kind of the state of the industry and where things are headed, and any tips and tricks he has to make for a successful brewery. So, Jason, welcome to the show. Thrilled to have you here today.
No, I appreciate that, Steve. A lot to live up to there, but I also understand I'm one of the first remote guests that you've had on the podcast. I'm crossing my fingers here. This is a lot of pressure.
You are actually, you're the second remote guest we've ever had. Our first ever episode was a remote guest, and then we transitioned to in-person, and then I realized that in-person is extremely difficult to keep up with. So here we are. We're back to virtual, and this is how we're riding the wave moving forward. So yeah, excited to have you.
Cool. Well, we would love to have you. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky, and I said it that way. And it's weird. Anybody that comes in, whether it's a vendor partner, a relationship, or hell, even family members, they always want to come that first Saturday in May for some reason or another when the Kentucky Derby's in town. It's pretty wild. We're in the midst of a music festival, Bourbon and Beyond, where we had a bunch of bands here, Noah Khan and Foreigner, as well as the Goo Goo Dolls last week, and then a bit more of the alternative scene, Slayer and Slipknot for another festival, the 4-day festival this weekend. Needless to say, I don't fit the demo. I will not be attending, but happy to be here with you.
Well, yeah, excited to have you. And actually, on that note, so let's dive right into the brewery side of things. You guys are really in prime bourbon country out in Kentucky. So what's it like owning a brewery amidst all the distilleries and, trying to attract tourism traffic for people that are there for distilleries, and you're the brewery in town?
Yeah, you get to latch on to that. Again, we're in an area of downtown Louisville that's appropriately named Nulu, Nulu, but it is next to Butchertown. So there is a lot of deep roots. And I want to count at least almost a dozen distilleries, all within a 1-mile radius of right now. Angel's Envy is one you may have heard of. It's right next door, as well as Rabbit Hole Distillery, and of course Michter's, and there's a bunch of them. So long story short, it's great to make those friends. The chemistry is similar but different in a lot of ways. So depending on our product, we have a couple good seasonal beers that we can age in bourbon barrels. So there's never a shortage of available resources, and the product trades do get very, very friendly when you do have neighbors like that. So yeah, it is great. They come in for the tourism, and we're happy to have something a little bit unique because people always crave a unique local brew when they come to Louisville or any other city they're visiting.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were telling me before we started that there's a pretty extensive history with Falls City Beer. I think you guys, I think it said on your website, you guys were founded in 1905, and then there's a whole history, and you took it over. And can you kind of dive into that a little bit and how you got
Yeah,
into?
I'd be happy to. And it's wild because, when I told my family we were getting involved with Fall City Beer, the eyebrows start to raise because, it's a Catholic city. I grew up Catholic, and my first memory of Fall City was, just going to my grandparents' house and eating fried fish on Friday and just seeing a couple cases of Fall City just kind of rolling around like tumbleweeds in the backyard among all my uncles and grandparents at the at the time there. So yeah, founded in 1905. We're actually in our 120th anniversary, and it
Wow.
really does tug the heartstrings. We've got a brewery here, and the nostalgia that comes into play. And I'll just show you one thing. Then I got a funny story too. There's a lot of folks that they're cleaning out their parents' garage or their grandparents' garage, and they will bring over this memorabilia, whether it's a 10 tacker or a neon sign or old cans and bottles. This one is unopened, and I mean these are from probably the 40s and 50s. You see the old pop top that are still there, and I'm amazed at just like the mint condition of old products that we still have from that generation that they're still in good condition, but people really cared and loved this brand back in the day, and they kept these this memorabilia and these products in their house for so long. It's really wild to me. The other quick funny story I'll say, there's a great karaoke pub down the street from our house in a suburb called St. Mary's, and I told this story, but I was excited. Anytime I see our beers in the wild in an account, I always like to say, "Hey, how's it performing?" I order it and talk to whoever the beer decider is, or just the part-time bartender. And I was taking a picture of our neon sign that, it was not a recent neon sign. The sign is seen had a little bit of dust on the bottom. It's been there for a long time. And I was taking a picture of it just for the social media gals, just to say, "Hey, check this out." And there was a burly guy next to me, and he's like, "You like Falls City?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely, I do. You have one? You like it?" And he's like, and the guy pulled up his arm, and he had Falls City tattooed on his shoulder blade. And
Wow.
so, you go to business school and you hear about brand equity and nostalgia, and there's only a few brands that people are willing to get a tattoo of, and more than likely it's like Chevy or Ford or Harley Davidson. But this guy had the Fall City shield tattooed on his arm. It cracked
Right.
me up. I loved it. I never told him our relationship, but I was just super pumped to meet the guy because he had a lot of stories too about his dad working in the brewery and such.
So you never told him that you were the president of Falls City?
I try to not be that guy, so, and plus you don't get an act. I don't think he was going to roll out the red carpet or be impressed. Let's be real. He's probably next in line to see Leonard Skinner or something. It's a good place.
Yeah, he probably would have asked for free beer for life. It's probably
Uh,
a good move if you didn't tell
yeah,
him.
absolutely. Absolutely. He earned it. We pitched the idea, on the 120th anniversary. I think we might save it, but anybody else out there that has a Fall City beer tattoo, or if they're willing to get a Fall City beer tattoo, we might do the free beer for life.
It's not a bad promo. It's just unlimited.
No, I don't think there'll be a lot of hesitation from a lot of folks. So either that's the good part.
There's got to be a clause in the contract, though. They have to get it somewhere visible, so maybe right on the forehead.
Yeah, a little Post Malone action there. Okay, all right.
I mean, so that's pretty incredible that the Falls City brand is so strong in that area that people are willing to get it tattooed on them. Why? I mean, not a ton of people, but that guy at least, that says something. Why is that? What do you think that Falls City has done differently from other brands that created such a
Well,
strong emotional connection to it?
Well, I do have to back up. There's goods and bads of this, and if hopefully some of your listeners know about Falls City because again, it's been around for 120 years, and back in the 1950s, I mean, it was one of the top five leading beers across the nation, and definitely one of the prominent ones around the Midwest with distribution. Far into Missouri and the entire East Coast. So they were moving about 3/4 million barrels of beer a year. So just a dominant player. heck, I was looking through, and we've got these canvases around, and any of the NASCAR fans that are out there, Darrell Waltrip actually drove a Fall City Beer NASCAR at the time. That just kind of shows you the scale of it, because we're not moving 750,000 barrels of beer by any stretch now, just a shade under 5 million now. So there were some dramatic things that happened at that time, but there is a big legacy of parents and grandparents that did work at the brewery, moving barrels of beer across the Midwest through Prohibition. Um, but as I understand it, and I've learned my history because I feel an obligation to do so. Back in the 60s, that's when the big players were really trying to make a national push. The Anheuser-Busch, the Molten Coors, they were really dominating the scene, and so it put Fall City in a defensive position to the point where they latched on to Jimmy Carter's brother. Jimmy Carter's brother, I guess when you're getting to know your elected president at the time, he had a brother, Billy, that was a known beer aficionado, a beer lover. So Fall City pivoted to a Billy beer. It was kind of like a lighter beer, which, it's on trend, huge now, but at that time people wanted that whole body beer. So Billy beer was a big kind of last ditch Hail Mary national effort by Fall City. Unfortunately, it was a big flop, and gave us the nickname, instead of Fall City, Fall Shitty. So, and that unfortunately became a lasting impression. And Fall City, went down the road and went dormant, and sometime in the 70s. It was reinvigorated in 2010, but with the appropriate T-shirt and apparel, same name, less shitty. So
Love it. Man, so you guys, it ceased to exist for about 40 years, and then was it you that picked it back up, or how did the reinvigoration happen?
I can't take credit for that. I wasn't around for it or anything. I was doing a corporate job at the time, but there was a few players that are still around, and John Ness, our principal, he bought the IP for the Fall City logo, recognizing that same brand awareness. I equate it to like Pabst Blue Ribbon. Even if you don't drink PBR, you know the logo, you recognize it, you get it. And Fall City kind of has that same. So he thought maybe I'll just make this an apparel brand, and just sell some retro pieces, hats, and rope hats with the netting, and just sweatshirts and hoodies that people gravitate towards. But that was right the 2010, right when the craft beer local and different scene was rising. So they said, all right, let's play around with it. So, they did rebirth Fall City beer. We still make the classic Pilsner, but also had a number of craft brew options out there as well. Some of them a little bit more edgy than others, and still succeed. But that's about 2010 is when reinvigoration of Fall City happened. And so we haven't changed all that much, but we're focusing on where we're winning at. It's probably the big change.
Got it. Okay. And how did you get into the business? Because I know you're with Ness Ventures, and then I know you're heavily involved with Fall City Beer. So can you take me through your personal story on your involvement?
I'll do it briefly, because I don't want to bore or lose traction with your folks. But I'm a native Louisvillian. Went to undergrad and grad school at University of Louisville, and so I spent 14 years at Papa John's International. We're actually based in Louisville, and I thought it was going to be a short stay while I was in grad school, but I had some great mentors, and my job kept on getting more and more interesting. And that leads into a point on difference and QSR, quick service restaurants, versus the beer industry. We grew Papa John's when I started from 10% online sales in 2006 to when I left in 2020 to being close to 85, 90%. So I got to travel the world and have a lot of fun with Papa John's. Been in 21 countries. We grew a lot of stores, but eventually my team was moving to Atlanta, Georgia, and we've got 3 kids, my wife and I, and she didn't want to move to Atlanta. The kids did not want to move to Atlanta, and so just trying to look at opportunities. And I was always curious about entrepreneurship, but didn't have the intestinal fortitude to drop everything with 3 kids and tuitions and try everything on my own. And was introduced to John Ness, and he basically said, look, he's a big proponent of Louisville and Southern Indiana, said you can do anything you want in Atlanta, you can do it right here in Louisville. And so he had some unique brands, some winners, some losers, some needing some attention, but overall just need some roadmap. And he just said, try us out for 6 months. And I've been here close to 3 years now. So we've had some wins, I'll say that, but other ones are still a work in progress.
Okay, gotcha. And so you lead up the food and beverage side of Ness Ventures. So what does the roadmap look like there? Is Fall City the main project? I know you have a couple other brands that you've acquired. So how are you trying to expand on the Ness Ventures side of things in regards to food and beverage?
Yeah, some of it's dictated by the industry, whichever one is kind of growing and shifting our resources. My marketing team, they do support a number of the brands. So we have Fall City Beer, which is pulls at the heartstrings. We love the brand. We're always going to have the brand and just try to put it in a position to succeed. We also operate a winery, a local winery, which sounds weird in Louisville, Kentucky. I promise the grapes are not from Louisville, Kentucky. And then we've got two low dosage cannabis, RTD ready to drink brands. And of course, I think the impact, and your listeners are probably aware of that industry.
Mhm.
It continues to grow and surge, but there's a lot of symmetries between our brewery and the RTD brands as well. And then also we've had a bourbon company, and we also have another gin company overseas that we're road mapping the future of right now. So anything in the sin industry, I'll say, in the spirits, we're involved in one way or another. But there is a lot of capability and shared resources that we can use.
Got it. Okay, cool. Now, as you know, alcohol consumption is declining. So I'm curious, if you're in the process of scaling and acquiring all these beverage brands, maybe it's a inaccurate assumption, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say you still feel somewhat optimistic about the future of the industry. So what's your thought process on that? Where do you see the industry going? Why craft beverage?
Yeah, again, it ebbs and flows. Obviously, I've got a lot of friends in the bourbon and spirits industry, being in Louisville, and you hear the headlines that bourbon's on decline. And actuality, I think you've probably seen the chart as well. There's a bit of more of a normalization. If it's growing, the market share is growing by, you know, 3% on an annual basis. Then you had the COVID spike that drove alcohol beverage sales up 20% in a year-over-year basis. Now we're kind of getting back to where that curve is on a more normalized basis. I see that in one regards. I did like I can't remember his name, but one of your previous podcast appearances talked about earning your beer, earning that drink after you're cutting the grass or a long day's work.
Yep.
Regardless of the vice, whether it's gonna in the future gonna be a low dose THC beverage, if it's gonna be that glass of wine that my wife likes and we just have bottles everywhere, or it's gonna be that ice cold beer. I think it's gonna be some stabilization. We've seen these spark in a can trends that come and go. So I'm not saying it's not going to continue to diversify, but I still feel pretty confident in the industry. We're just trying to catch on and then find symmetries to where all the brands can grow together.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think there was a period of rapid expansion, and now we're just sort of in a consolidation period where, unfortunately, I think some brands are going to struggle and go out of business. But the ones that can make it through the storm, so to speak, will be stronger at the end of the day for it.
Yeah.
And so, on that note, you're heavily involved in the industry in multiple different ways. What are, if you're looking at, let's say, acquiring a new craft beverage brand, or you're looking at a brewery that you think is going to be successful, what are some of the things that you would look for to maximize the likelihood of success?
I mean, there's a lot of obvious ones that I don't think are going to surprise people. Just top of my head, market share, existing shelf space, distribution symmetries, flavor profile, the brand equity, good or bad, growing, is it fading, perceptions, equipment, capabilities, the team, the culture, can they vibe, can they all go together? I guess my favorite acquisition is when you do have a brand that's very well established, and you've got the owner that's just looking to retire and has a number two person that is entrenched in the operation, essentially running the business, and they just want to walk away and retire, and it becomes very easy to make that transition and grow. But I guess the benefit for us, we are involved in so many different industries, from transportation to real estate development, and of course all the spirits. Real estate becomes our kind of foundational play. If there's a big opportunity there, okay, we're listening. We'll dig in a little bit deeper, and then equipment capabilities. Everybody's equipment's always breaking down or and need repair. I don't think anybody's surprised by that in the business. We've got a few pieces of equipment that are, pantyhose and bubble tape holding on to. So I can think of a recent one that we were really deep in the consideration set because we love the real estate. the equipment was so gently used, and they had a really unique inventory and equipment set for a cider, which obviously fit a vacancy and our offerings right there. We didn't want to put a Fall City beer stamp on it. That wouldn't do the brand any justice. It would feel like a misfit toy. But we went down the road for quite a while. It was really a real estate play, an equipment play, and the brand, while cider's not huge in the Midwest, there is an edge case that had some growth potential and allowed us to some capabilities on the RTD space. Unfortunately, we didn't come to final terms, and probably regret it. 1 year look back, we probably should have taken the deal. Um, but those are some of the high level plays. We can go deeper as you desire. But
Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense, the real estate and equipment side of things. And I also like what you said about the owners just looking to retire and they already kind of have like a number two in place who can run things. That I have heard that, we're in kind of a unique time period right now where there's a massive transfer of wealth happening from baby boomers to younger generations as baby boomers are retiring. And there are a lot of businesses that are, you can basically buy for pennies on the dollar because otherwise they just kind of close them down and don't even sell them. So they're happy to just sell to you for whatever they can get for it. Um, so yeah, that's good that you guys are taking advantage of that and creates a lot of opportunities, it sounds like.
no, we could really go off course here. But the other qualifying, before anything is, is it AI proof? I've got a friend that, is a business broker, and that's kind of the qualification there too. And, spirits are definitely not AI proof. They satisfy a human need, whether we can debate the future of the industry appeal. But yeah, we're always going to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. AI can't drink your beer for you.
There you go. Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah. That's when it's time to call it quits when they figure that one out. So kind of similar question on that same note. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see breweries making that stop them from really building a sellable asset at the end of the day?
That's a good one. Again, I think it's, you'd love to have passion, but unfortunately, passion can make you broke in this industry. Um, Dealing with restaurants or dealing in real estate, I will say there's a lot of groups that don't get along with each other. They're direct competitors. In the brewery side, I think embrace that culture. I was pleasantly surprised at just the collaboration, the community that is in the brewery. Our master brewer, Cayman Finnis, he's worked at 2 or 3 other breweries. So when we have a vacancy on the team, I mean, he's got a full Rolodex of part-time, full-time guys that are just waiting for an opportunity to be a assistant brewer, diversify their knowledge set. When we order wheat and yeast and cans, we've got a great network, with Sam Cruz and Against the Grain and Nathaniel Graverly or John Flotter and 1020 Brewery that kind of works as a soundboard. And like we kind of compare notes, especially with the tariffs and import taxes now. That's the only way to really make this thing work, because if you're not watching your COGS, and not really trying to keep a tight grasp on your inventory, even packaging, it's not perishable, but if you're having seasonal rotations and brand redesigns, it kind of is perishable. So just being careful there. And that's some of the low hanging fruit, if you will, and trying to, just make everything usable, never having waste. And
Yep.
that's easier, tougher to do than said, I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with what you said about just like the level of cooperation and friendliness in the brewery industry. That was one of the pleasant surprises for me as well when I got into it. I'm just on the marketing side, but I've worked in a couple other industries and nobody has been nearly as friendly and welcoming, and like everybody's just so easy to talk to. And I guess that is kind of one of the nice things about working in quote unquote a passion industry where people are just in it because they really, really love it. It's like, you know, you want everybody to make money, but it's cool working with people that just genuinely love what they do.
And no other industry, if you're a coffee shop, you wouldn't open up a coffee shop right next to another coffee shop. You'd be like, why would I do that? But when you have a brewery, when you have a bar, you want to be next to and in good terms with your neighbor. And so I love that spirit of the community. So it brings people together for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I'll ask you this because you brought it up. the tariffs that are happening right now, has that impacted you guys at all? And if so, what are you doing to adjust and, just keep up with that?
We're making mistakes right now. I'll tell you that. We're in the midst of a brand redesign, just kind of refreshing. It's probably been 7 years for our branding, and so we need to refresh things and get a new touch on it. Unfortunately, I think the cost of our canning, and we shopped it out to three different groups, and God, it's going to cost us about 8 cents more per can, and it's like just total facepalm moment because it just wrecks you. So that you can increase the lead times and getting, inkjet cans as opposed to wrapped ones, but then you got to wait and you got to order so many, so many of each brew. Then it becomes a storage problem. So I wish I could say that we have it figured out. It has impacted us significantly, especially on the aluminum side, and that goes across the brands that we package. So yeah, we're feeling it. We're taking it on the chin right now. If there was ever the thought that your canned products are really a marketing expense more than an operational revenue stream, this is now right now. So hopefully it's a short-term pain, but yeah, we feel it.
Yeah, yeah. I think everybody's in figure it out mode right now, as if the beer industry wasn't challenging enough.
My goodness, right? Thank goodness it
uh,
tastes good and we like it. So.
yeah, as long as the customers are happy. Yeah, that's what matters. What is one thing you wish you knew about the brewery business before you got into it?
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know if there's a single thing that I wish I would knew. It is different. Like I said, I came from Papa John's where we just had abundance of resources and we had so much data and infrastructure in place, and we were able to scale that at a national and global level. We touched on it earlier. I knew a lot about our customer at Papa John's. I can make general assumptions about the household makeup. If they ordered a cheese pizza, more than likely they're going to have a kid in the house. If they order a salad, there's probably a vote from a parent figure inside the house. If they order wings, hey, they're probably for a game day type thing. And we can make predictions. The Steve's family is orders every 4 weeks, and there's a break in that cycle that's lived on for 6 months. We need to re-recruit that family, and we know everything about you. Beer's different outside of the tap room audience that hopefully you have a great first name basis with. Just knowing that customer cycle is very frustrating in a sense when you're working through a distributor and then it's going to a retailer shelf and then you're going to the consumer finally. So you're 3 steps removed from your customer. You talk to the distributor and they're like, well, this is selling, this is selling. Talk to the retailer, they just want, more posters, more promotional materials. But getting to the consumer insights has been a big challenge for me, and I don't know exactly how to fix it. I'm sure there's a software guy, hopefully, that's listening that has all the answers. So that's been a frustrating part. I don't know if there's a single thing that, to learn or wish I would have known before coming into the industry, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, the 3-tier system definitely does make it challenging. And I imagine on the Falls City side of things, are you guys mostly focused on distribution at the moment, or is it more of a taproom play at the moment? I know most people are shifting towards the taproom model because it's more profitable, but it depends on the scale of your operation.
Yeah, I respect that model because that's obviously much more fun and face to face with your consumers and such. I don't want to say there's not a tap room play for us when the right real estate opportunity perceives it. I think there will. We have another brand that's a fun, fast or casual dining segment that kind of works as our hub and spoke. We've got locations in Louisville, Southern Indiana, Lexington, and approaching Northern Kentucky to bleed over to Cincinnati, which would reintroduce Fall City to Cincinnati. When we make that move, then absolutely we'd want to have a sister kind of tap room situation going on too. But I'd say right now it really is probably losing answer, but we are focusing on continue to increase shelf space and just remaining a staple in the community at large, as opposed to the tap room play with those really, really high margin, profitable draft pours. I know.
Sounds nice.
Yeah, gosh, I'm craving one right now. So,
So on the if you're mainly focused on the distribution side, you mentioned that analytics is a challenge. So what do you do for the marketing side of things? Is there anything that you've found to be successful or unsuccessful? What have you tried? What has worked? What hasn't worked?
yeah, we have a balance on our team. This go for all the brands. We never want to post just to post. every post has to have a purchase and keep a rhythm. It's got to be brand building, brand equity, a little bit promotional, and then something that's user generated that comes into us organically or that we feast in there. So that's kind of the balance on the social side. I guess the other piece I would say, and I kind of lean into it, is just being a good community partner. We couldn't do these type of things if we were making 750,000 barrels of beer anymore. I guess that's the good side of only making 5,000 barrels a year. But we get to work directly with the community, and I'm going to show some examples here too. So this is Down Syndrome of Louisville, obviously a big nonprofit here in Louisville, and they've got a festival coming up, and so we just worked and had a poster contest that we were able to turn that into artwork for them.
That's so cool.
It just feels good. It helps them out. We give proceeds back to the association. A little bit more affluent here as a country club, and so we took one of our existing brews and just put that into artwork that supported their clubs. And then obviously on a bigger label, we have relationships with the soccer clubs here in Louisville, so we were able to have some branding. This idea kind of came from going to a Clemson football game 10 years ago, and I saw their Bud Light cans were orange. And I'm like, why in the world are doing that? But people were paying a premium and just really craving the orange Bud Light cans because they were Clemson fans. And I'm like, all right, let's kind of bridge the heartstrings of cold beer and your team affiliation and see what we can do. Last one I'd show you is kind of our AAA affiliate. This is Louisville Bats. We call this one Home Run Hops. They got really excited about that and just introduced it the first year, and it's outselling Blue Moon and Modelo at the ballpark, which is mind blowing.
That's awesome. So you found that the labeling around being a community staple has been the most successful play on the distribution side?
Yeah, I think it catches your eye. It provides a connection. I wouldn't dare put a U of L or UK. The Louisville, Kentucky is very divided, and the college fandom, we don't have the Ravens or big sports teams here, pro teams here. So it's a very divisive conversation. I don't want to touch that. We touch baseball and soccer, which everybody loves.
Yeah, you don't want to be too polarizing.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, I have one last question, and we'll go into a little lightning round to wrap up. So, just last question for you. What's one thing that you would want brewery owners and just the general public in general to walk away from this interview with, just knowing about your brand? What's like a closing statement for you?
Oh, goodness. I'll do a quote that, my girls, they on the marketing side, they hate hearing it because they have to hear it on occasion. I'm like, listen with the intent to understand so that later you can be understood. There's a lot of people that I learn from inside and outside this building every single day. Just because I think something tastes great doesn't mean that it's going to be the best seller. So I always listen to the consumer and just double check my intuitions before putting something in motion because there's a lot of risk there, especially when this competitive, crazy world that we're operating in.
Yep. You actually, with the quote, you already answered one of my lightning round questions, so you were way ahead of me. We'll dive in regardless.
Perfect.
All right, you ready?
Bring it on.
IPA or lager?
I've become an IPA guy. I'm trying to keep it afloat with all the garage beers. Let's go.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Oh, goodness. Flying, of course. Flying would be cool.
Favorite brewery or craft beverage brand that is not in your portfolio?
Yeah, there's something about Guinness and Leinenkugel Summer Shandy. I've been over to Dublin. There's nothing better than you end that tour with that Guinness pour right there. So cap tip, they're the best.
We have a Guinness in Baltimore, so I'm on board with that answer.
Okay, all right.
Wine or spirits?
Probably a wine guy, but maybe that's because I'm in my 40s now. I'm getting a little bit more cultured, I suppose. But wintertime, the fire, bourbon makes a comeback.
Favorite saying or quote that you think about often?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, I've got too many of them. My favorite's always, the answer is yes. What's the question? I encourage that. Like I've got a son in college right now. That's, you're kind of your melting pot of community. So I'm just lean right in. You get asked something, just say yes. Let's go. Just you don't learn without, entrenching yourself in that. So.
Yep, love it. What is one bucket list item that you have already accomplished?
My wife's a lot more attractive than I am, so that was pretty cool. I outkicked my coverage in that regards. So I'll say that one. That I do have our oldest son. He is a scratch golfer and I am not. So I was happy for him. Unfortunately, I wish I could shoot under par.
Yeah, that's on my bucket list too. Have not accomplished that, not even close.
Not even on not even on Golden Tee. It's pretty sad.
It's a tough sport. One bucket list item that you have accomplished or have not accomplished, excuse me.
Yeah, I have not accomplished. Again, flying, go back to flying. That's not just a superhero pursuit. You know, I gave up on my pilot's license in high school, and I wish I wouldn't have done that. And obviously, with my kids, I would love for them to be multilingual, as that's definitely going to be a priority in future generations if it's not already. So,
Yeah. And then last question, biggest obstacle you've ever had to overcome and one lesson you learned from it.
oh gosh, I don't know. Just life hits you, you know. Just I always laugh at some of my friends that are double income, no kids, the dinks. You know, they have all this disposable income and just spending recklessly. Uh, so I don't know. Just learning a lot about yourself in that regards, and just putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. I don't know how I got there from that comment to that, but just continue to entrench yourself culturally. But I don't know. Yeah, gosh, I'm bad lightning round answer. I know there, Steve. Sorry.
No, I threw you a tough one at the end of the lightning round.
Hey, it was worthy. I should have done better homework.
Well, Jason, thanks so much for coming on today. This was awesome, and really appreciate your time, and really appreciate you sharing some of your insights and your story and the Fall City Brewing story and the Ness Ventures story. So how can people contact you? How can they find out about you? And how can they drink Fall City beer?
Oh man, like I said, we got a big presence in Louisville or Kentucky and Indiana for Fall City Beer. If you're ever around, please come see us. FallCityBeer.com is the easiest way to find us in Nulu. But I'm very active on LinkedIn, so please look me up, Jason Wade. Be happy to connect and love meeting new people in that regard. So I'm an introvert in a big crowd, but that's my safe place.
All right. Well, thanks again, Jason, and we'll catch up soon.
Sounds good. Cheers.